We have a treat this morning. It's so nice to have John back this week. Yeah. As normal, the meditation was a song that he wrote, and we're going to feature John as our special guest this morning first, and then Demi after the talk. So, and John's retuning the ukulele. I offered to retune the piano, but
no one took you.
That's John Bartlett.
All of it. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When I started to think about what I wanted to share this morning, I realized that the theme that kept going through my head started to feel really dangerous. And I started to look at that, like, why is it dangerous? Because what I want to talk about today is the fact that life is difficult. And I was in my head going, what? Like, why does that seem like such a dangerous topic? And I realized that through all of my New Thought training, I had been trained to not acknowledge that life is actually difficult. In fact, I've been told to deny it. There is a whole spiritual practice called denial. There is chapters in books about how to deny things, the bad that is happening in the world and in our lives. And I realized that my theology has changed. So a lot of my process over the last few years has been reclaiming all of the places where I had left kind of my authentic expression through training, through this idea that this was the way we teach this philosophy. And one of the things I have to deeply recognize is that life is hard. It is hard. Shit happens. And no amount of consciousness, no amount of spiritual purity, no amount of meditation and prayer is going to make it so that life stops happening. None. And so I think it's pretty funny that I feel like this is sacrilegious, but it is sacrilegious in New Thought to just stand here and say, it's hard. Difficult things happen. So I was thinking back to when I first found New Thought philosophy and where that resonated with me. And I was in elementary school. And I was 10 years old, and I was reading these books, and they touched my heart. The first one was The Impersonal Life, which is this cute little channeled book that I didn't quite fully understand at the time, but it spoke to something. And it was this wisdom that said that the power and the presence of life is inside of you. You can access it. And that ignited something in me, some remembrance. And so I started studying, but it wasn't until I started getting trained from this kind of bigger, idea by people who told me how I needed to teach this stuff that I started to encounter this kind of idea and recognize that it was being taught by a bunch of freaking control freaks, right? Because New Thought philosophy isn't really about stopping bad things from happening, but people were keeping on telling me that if you just do this right, if you pray right, whatever that is, that you will get past all of that all of those bad things that you don't want to happen, you will somehow be able to control out of existence. And I realized that that's just not true. And in fact, it has done an incredible disservice to so many people who feel like when something bad happens to them in their life, that there's something wrong with their connection with the divine. And over, I watched that hurt. And so that breaking free, I have goosebumps right now, because what I remember deeply is like the sense of this wholeness that is holding us, that was what that whole philosophy was about from the beginning. This remembrance that we are part of a wholeness that can include even the bad things that are going to happen, and that the divine and the love that we are is big enough to hold all of that. And when we get past all of the trappings of how all of this is taught, and we get past our idea of that we got to control it into being, we can recognize that there's a grace and a beauty that is there even in the midst of all of the shit we go through. And so I've been, as you know, I am a lover of poetry. And so last week I came across a new poet that I had not come across before, and that led me down the rabbit hole, because I remembered this other poet that I loved, and then I decided that I needed to go find more of her work because it spoke to me so much. And so today is Ellen Bass Day. She wrote a book or a poem about peace that I've used for years. But this poem really spoke to the topic today. So through all of it, you have to remember that the title of it is Relax. Okay? So the title of the poem is Relax, but this is the poem. Bad things are going to happen. Your tomatoes will grow fungus, and your cat will get run over. Someone will leave the bag with the ice cream melting in the car and throw your favorite blue cashmere sweater in the dryer. Your husband will sleep with a girl your daughter's age, her breasts spilling out of her blouse. And your wife will remember she's a lesbian and leave you for the woman next door. The other cat, the one you never really liked, will contract a disease that requires you to pry open its feverish mouth every 4 hours. Your parents will die. No matter how many vitamins you take, how much Pilates, you will lose your keys, your hair, and your memory. If your daughter doesn't plug her heart into every live socket she passes, you'll come home to find your son has emptied the refrigerator, dragged it to the curb, and called the used appliance store for pickup drug money. There's a Buddhist story, though, of a woman chased by a tiger. And when she comes to a cliff, she sees a sturdy vine and climbs halfway down. But there's also a tiger below. And 2 mice, one black, one white, scurry out and begin to gnaw at the vine. And at this point, she notices a wild strawberry growing from a crevice, and she looks up and down at the mice, and then she eats the strawberry. So there's the view, the breeze, the pulse in your throat. Your wallet will be stolen. You'll get fat, slip on the bathroom tiles of a foreign hotel and crack your hip. You'll be lonely. Oh, taste, oh, taste, oh, taste, how sweet and tart the red juice is, how the tiny seeds crunch between your teeth. So here's the thing. All those things will happen. No amount of preparation can control the experience that we've signed up here to have, which is to be alive, with all of the impermanence of it, all of the things that can go wrong, that can hurt. And there is something so juicy and sweet if we are willing to participate in all of it from our wholeness instead of constantly trying to stop it from happening. And so this is what I'm finding as I'm reclaiming all of that inherent wholeness, is this sense in which we didn't need to control any of it in the first place. There was something inside of us that just knows how to maneuver all of it, even the stuff that feels too big for what we understand at the time. There's something inside of us that knows how to do it, and when we drop into that place inside of us, something else happens, where we're not trying to keep what's happening from happening. When we stop that, something else can happen. So what I realized is that as I'm reclaiming this sense of not being a control freak, about thinking that what my job here on this planet is to stop all of the bad things that I think could happen from happening, and constantly trying to stay in front of that, and instead welcoming the fact that things fall apart, and that things are not permanent, and that things change, that there's an openness to then experience what happens when we get out of the way of that. So there's a old story about a woodsman who was giving advice about catching a porcupine. And what he said was, you watch first for the slapping tail as you dash in, and then you drop a big wash tub over it. And he said the wash tub is going to give you something to sit on while you ponder how to make your next move. And I thought it was so funny when I read that, but what I realized is that's exactly what happens, right? Like when we drop the struggle against what's happening in front of us, when we put the wash tub over it, we open into a space that then where we can ponder what happens next, where we step out of the automatic response that we have to control or stop something, and instead get present to it. We access something different in ourselves. And so this is what I think all of the great masters have been trying to get us to realize over and over, is that we are actually whole in a way that we have not yet been willing to experience ourselves. And that our entire experience is in fact whole. That there aren't just parts of it, the parts we like, the pretty parts, the parts we want to show off on Facebook, but actually like the whole of it. The whole of it is part of the one, and that all of it is sacred. And in all of it, we can find beauty and grace when we remember that wholeness inside of us. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking back to Carrie Newcomer's song that I've quoted over and over, that she actually found the lines to in an interview Barbara Kingsolver gave. So Barbara Kingsolver was one of my favorite authors when I was in middle school. I dove right in to her work, and so she's always held this little space in my heart. And one of the things she said in this interview was that her family has a mantra, which is that whenever something hard comes up, their mantra is, you can do this hard thing. You can do this hard thing. So the Carrie Newcomer song says, you can do this hard thing. It is not easy, I know, but I believe in you. You can do this hard thing. And what a beautiful reminder in the midst of all of the things that are going on, that we can do the hard thing. We don't need to make it go away, that we in fact have everything inside of us to do that hard thing, and that's part of our wholeness, that we can do the hard thing. And you're doing it beautifully. There's some stories of things going on in this room right now that I have the privilege of knowing because of my position here. And what I want you to know is that you are doing this hard thing beautifully. And that Spirit is right there. Spirit is right there in the midst of that hard thing, and that it is precious. And from that place of acknowledging the difficulty of it, we actually can bring more beauty and more hope. So one of the things, as I was reflecting, I was realizing that denying the fact that something was difficult was so damaging, because it was keeping me from the beauty of what was actually happening. The beauty of what was unfolding, the hope that was actually present there, the transformation that was occurring. And if I kept having to deny that it was hard and kept having to talk about it like, oh yeah, everything's rosy, everything's beautiful, everything's easy, in order to prove somehow that I was spiritual enough, that if I kept on doing that, I was actually missing out on a whole huge part of being human and the preciousness of that. So whenever I think about the preciousness of this human life, I come back to the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. And so this is a book that has a daily passage for every day of the week, or every day of the week, year, whatever. I'm losing my mind. It's okay. Every day of the year. And he starts the whole book with this passage for January 1st about the preciousness of a human birth. And this is what he says. There's a Buddhist precept that asks us to be mindful of how rare it is to find ourselves in human form on earth. It is a really beautiful view of life that offers us a chance to feel enormous appreciation for the fact that we are here as individuals, filled with consciousness, drinking water, and chopping wood. It asks us to look about at the ant and the antelope, at the worm and the butterfly, at the dog and the bull, at the hawk and the wild, lonely tiger, at the 100-year-old oak and the 1,000-year-old patch of ocean. It asks us to understand that no other life form has the consciousness of being where we are privileged to be. It asks us to recognize that of all the endless species of plants and animals and minerals that make up the earth, a very small portion of life has the wakefulness of spirit that we call being human. That I can rise from some depth of awareness is to express this to you, that I can rise from some depth of awareness to express this to you, and that you can receive that from me in the instant part of our... Okay. That I can rise from some depth of awareness is to... See, it's written here wrong, which is what this isn't. Some depth of awareness to it. Thank you. I needed that. To express this to you, and that you can receive from me in this instant is part of our precious human birth. You could have been an ant. I could have been an anteater. You could have been rain. I could have been a lick of salt. But were we blessed in this time and place to be humans, beings, alive, in rare ways we often take for granted? All of this is to say this precious human birth is unrepeatable. So what will you do today, knowing that you are one of the rarest forms of life to ever walk the earth? How will you carry yourself? What will you do with your hands? What will you ask, and of whom? Tomorrow you could die and become an ant, and someone will be setting traps for you. But today you are precious and rare and awake. It ushers us into grateful living. It makes hesitation useless. Grateful and awake. Ask what you need to know now. Say what you feel now. Love what you love now. And so here we are in this precious thing called life, and it is hard. It is difficult. We come up against things that feel too big, like things we did not want to have to look at. And it is precious. And the one is big enough for all of it. And so when we encounter our tendency to want to push away the experience of what is right in front of us, to control it out of existence, to pray it out of being, I'm inviting us into a different perspective that says that all of this is part of the one. Not just the parts I am comfortable with, not just the parts that feel good, not just the parts that feel like what I prayed for, but like all of it. And we can remember together that we can do it. That whatever it is, whatever challenge that we encounter, that we can embrace it and let it move us and be moved by it. And that's the whole point in the first place. And so I know that this is different from what you may have heard from other New Thought teachers, but what I know is that it is a disservice to deny our experience. It is a disservice to think that somehow if we just got it right, and if our relationship with God was just perfect, then we wouldn't have to struggle at all. And that's bullshit. Yes. Because we are whole. And there is nothing wrong with our connection with the divine, even if we're going through hard things. There's nothing that keeps us from the infinite love of the one, even if we don't feel it. And so this is my reminder to you that you can do this hard thing, that you're doing it beautifully, and that the one that sent us here knows what it's doing as us, and that which is inside of us knows how to respond to that, can and will in the perfect time. And maybe we're sitting on top of the wash bucket on top of that porcupine right now, figuring out what our next move is, and that's perfect. Because there's something inside of us that knows how. And so we don't have to worry, and we don't have to go into fear, but some of that is okay as well. Doesn't mean we are not holy and whole. It doesn't mean that our consciousness is defective, that we feel fear. Oh, monster. Monsters are scary. And we can encounter the infinite love of the infinite at any point. And it's in all of it. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. So we're going to pray. And as we prepare the way, I'm just going to invite you to maybe think about some place in your life where you haven't been willing to experience the wholeness. Maybe you've been trying to push it away, thinking it's something that's gone wrong. Maybe you've been unwilling to accept that hard things happen, and this is a hard thing. And as we allow prayer to move in us, I just recognize that we are moving from this place of wholeness that knows that it is big enough for whatever gets thrown at it. So please join me as we sing.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us
And so our prayer of love today is a prayer of remembering our wholeness in a whole new way. A prayer that remembers that the power and the presence of the One is in all of it. In the things that feel like they are what we wish to experience, and in all of the other things as well. The One is present. Love is present. Peace and freedom are present. And as we allow ourselves to feel into that space, I remember and I recognize that there's no need to downplay the struggle, because the infinite knows how to respond to it. And so as we lean more deeply into our connection that can never be limited in any way, I just recognize that Spirit knows exactly how to reveal whatever it is that needs to be revealed, that Spirit knows how to transform whatever it needs to transform. And even in the midst of the darkness and the grief and the pain, I remember that we are not alone. And that in fact we can do whatever difficult thing that we are charged to do, that in fact we are doing it, and we are doing it brilliantly. So I just honor that space inside of us that is willing to embrace the wholeness, and therefore be guided in a deeper way into embracing the sweetness and the beauty of all of it. So just lean in even more deeply to that love. I let it embrace us. As it has always been embracing us. I let it in. And I let it be. And so it is.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. We are going to feature Demi DeSante, young Demi DeSante, on a song that he wrote entitled, wait for it, My Big Backyard. How big is your backyard, Demi? It's so big. Demi DeSante.
Oh, thank you, Demi, for sharing that with us. So now's the time where we move into the sharing of our tithes and offerings. I invite you to take whatever it is you brought to share with this community today, and I invite you to hold it over your heart and give it a silent blessing, whatever that may be for you today. Maybe there's just some way in which acknowledging that life is difficult, that there are hard things that happen, can open you to a peace and a grace that is bigger. Or maybe there's just a way in which you're being called to recognize the wholeness, in which all of that which comes together and falls apart is alive in, and that you are alive in it as well. And maybe you can just lean into that. Whatever that is for you today, I just invite you to feel what it feels like to know that no matter what it is, whatever question is on your heart, that you have the answer and that you are doing a fabulous job. And I just lean into that knowing, and I let it be. And please sing with me as our ushers come through the aisle.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is a rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
So please join me as we bless all that has been offered into this space. All of the music, all of the love, all of the prayers, and we just lift each other up. No matter what it is that is going on, we allow the power and the presence of the One to surround us and lift up whoever it is that may need that this moment. And I just recognize that Spirit knows how to do this. It knows how to do it as us, and that whatever it is that we encounter, that we have enough of everything inside of us to receive exactly what it is that we need to receive. And I just know that this is how Spirit works. and I let go into that, and I let it be, and so it is. So I have a couple of things. I want to thank those of you who came to honor Lynn yesterday. It was very sweet to see a community of one show up to honor the passing of one of our own, and so I want to thank you for showing up to that sweetness. It was an interesting thing to attempt to do. So I want to tell you just a little story, which is that Lynn's best friend and I were talking about what we loved most about her presence, and we realized that her laughter was such a key component to her life. And so during this memorial service, I actually led the people there in a laughing meditation, which sounded so odd at a memorial service, right? Like, what, you're gonna laugh? And first of all, I know Lynn would have loved it, but also it's so cathartic, you know, just in the midst of feeling whatever we're feeling, to just laugh. So I felt like I needed to share with you today. So if if you're feeling something like the goofy, like, and what it is you just laugh. You search your face first because you might hurt yourself, but you laugh, and you just laugh, and you let that laughter guide you. And so maybe you want to use that technique, especially if you're going through something right now. It's helpful. Also want to give everyone an update because if you were here at the beginning of October, you know I was a freaking mess. And I presented to the community, we need to figure out how we're going to move forward, because financially it was becoming unsustainable for my husband and Zephyr and I to just keep on pouring all of our personal resources into making sure that we could keep this going. And I want to thank everyone because it's been amazing. Our donations have come from places I was not expecting. Spirit has a tendency to work like that, so I'm really grateful. So we're not going anywhere. And I just want to thank everyone for helping me be in the question of how we move forward, and we will continue to be in the question, but things are looking up. So in the next few weeks, we will be cooking for Community of Hope on the third Saturday of this month, and then we will be at Roadrunner Food Bank on the fourth Saturday. And I think that's all I have to say today. So thank you for being here. It's nice to see some faces I haven't seen in a while, and see some family, and see some faces I don't know that I've ever seen. So hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and let us sing.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Let's give thanks to the Lord, and we can feel alright. People, get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith, hear that day is so humming. You don't need no tickets, you just thank the Lord. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord, and we can feel alright. People, get ready, the train to Jordan is picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is us the key. Open the doors and boredom. There's room for all that love them. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright.
And we have one last blessing to sing to one another.
Go forth and walk in beauty and know that we are one. my word and it's lock and key. It's for you to keep. My baseball glove and yellow submarine and a canopy for when you sleep. There is a mixture of blood in my veins, a Russian Jew of Polish descent, and a great-grandmother who is pleasantly insane, and an English farmer with a Gaelic accent. Take me for all I'm worth. Take me for all I've got. Take